Yeah, we're up for Cam's Mortgage Minute on Wednesday, May the 15th. Wow, what an election last night. Nobody saw that coming. I mean, certainly if you look at what all the pundits had said, the Liberals were going to get decimated. Well, obviously they wound up with a majority, and again, like I said, just goes to show you that the experts and the so-called professionals certainly don't know everything that's out there. Now, speaking of that, I've heard some rumblings recently about more mortgage rule changes coming or proposed. Minister Flaherty is thinking of now clamping down on the amortization period on conventional mortgages. You'll remember back in October we made a major shift. We went to 25-year AMs on basically CMHC insured mortgages, and those were the big rule changes that happened. So the government felt that if they were going to underwrite this mortgage and guarantee it, they wanted the amortization capped at 25 years. Fair enough. I mean, it's, as a taxpayer, I'm certainly always happy when the government is trying to do something prudent and worthy. Now, in this circumstance, however, they're now looking at folks that have conventional mortgages that don't even need CMHC insurance, and they want to cap the amortizations on those. You know what? There's some things, well, you know what? Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. You can tinker with some things, and I find the government doesn't certainly have the ability to tinker very well. There is certainly things that they need to be focused on, looking at, and I get it when there's risk involved, and again, as a taxpayer, I certainly want them to protect me. But when you're looking at folks who already have tons of equity in their property and they want to have longer amortizations, so be it. That's got no bearing on the government. It's not their risk that they're in. Now, where the government is making their argument is that some of the main banks, predominantly like Scotia and the Royal and stuff, are back-end insuring mortgages. That's right, and this was something we've talked about a few times. These banks are primarily, when CMHC was created, like I said, it was designed to help people get into the housing market that had less than the 20% or 25%, whatever the rules were at the time. And the reality now is that's what they're supposed to be there for. However, what a lot of these major banks are doing is they're back-end insuring their conventional mortgages, which is making the risk more inherent to CMHC because they're getting advice from analysts, different financial, Moody's and different kinds of rating agencies who are saying, well, hey, you know what, if the Canadian economy adjusts and the real estate market adjusts by 10-15%, hey, CMHC, you're in trouble because you've guaranteed these other mortgages at 80%, 75%, whatever. And so the bottom line is, and the reason a lot of these banks are doing this is to offload the risk so they can lend more money. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you're going to be in the banking business, there's some inherent risks you have to take. And I certainly am not a big fan of banks back-end insuring conventional mortgages. CMHC should be doing what CMHC was designed to do, which was to help first-time buyers or people with less than 20% down or whatever get into the market, not protect banks for shielding their risk so they can make more profit. I have nothing wrong with banks making profit. Hey, all day long. That's what they're in the business for, and if they don't make money, none of us are around. But the bottom line is that that's not what they're intended to do, and now the government is looking at clamping down further to stymie their risk on that front, and the risk that shouldn't even exist. So my words to Mr. Flaherty is I'd say leave well enough alone. The real estate market is hanging in there. If you look at the recent CREA numbers, market's up by 0.6 overall. Values are still holding fairly comparable to April of last year. It's sputtering along and moving along, and no doubt in part to these low mortgage rates we've seen. They're definitely helping the market, but again, a further clamping on investors or people who've got conventional, got enough money to have a conventional mortgage, have done prudent things, would rather have an amortization because that's longer because they want to invest the money in other places, perhaps put it into RSPs, whatever. The bottom line is they should have the prerogative to do so. They're not putting the government in any inherent risk, nor are they putting the rest of us in inherent risk. They've done the right things, they've built up equity, and hey, let them do with it as they please and let them have unfettered access to however they want to structure that. There should be nothing impeding from that. So, and I think what will happen is if this ultimately goes through, what you're going to see is you're going to see this void filled by alternative or B lenders who are going to offer longer amortizations at higher rates. If the banks are truly worried about their risk position or whatever else, or they are using CMHC because they can offer lower rates because they're offloading risk, well, don't use them. Charge slightly higher rates. Let the marketplace dictate, but don't have CMHC as your shield and as your escape to basically work around that. Anyway, just some thoughts. So if you, as a consumer, taxpayer, as a Canadian citizen or whatever, if you're not a fan of these rule changes happening on conventional mortgages, you should be writing your MP. You should be getting a hold of them. Send a letter to the Minister of Finance. Let them know how you feel, because these things definitely are going to have an impact. All of these things that have been driven by OSFI in the last year or so have certainly had an impact on the mortgage market. And as I mentioned to you before in a previous CAM's Mortgage Minute, we've had 40 plus mortgage rule changes in the last short span. So there's been a lot out there. Anyway, just thought I'd share that with you for those who didn't know what was going on out there. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow at CAM's Mortgage Minute. And again, if you need anything mortgage-wise, don't hesitate, give us a shout. We're always ready, willing, and able to help, and look forward to doing it.